Well, I've talked about both games and now it's time we put it against each other. Now there is a lot of videos out there talking about which game is better, Ocarina of Time or Majora's Mask. Now I would say it's really up to preference which game you like better because, again, I'd argue that both games are great on their own right. They're both very original stories and I think they both work great as games. Definitely considered one of the best games ever. But now let's talk about which one is really better. The story of Ocarina of Time is almost like a story of the hero's quest. It's almost kind of like a storybook of how one boy became a hero and saved an entire land. Well, let's start from the beginning. The character you play as is Link, a young boy who eventually learns that he is actually the hero of time, destined to become a hero to save the entire land. His adventure begins in the Great Deku Tree as he needs to lift the curse upon him. As he goes inside, he runs into Goma, the cause of the curse. As he gets rid of Goma, he gets the first spiritual stone as he confronts Princess Zelda, and she tells Link that there are 2 more stones out there, one in the mountain, one in the oceans. He gets the second stone from the Gorons by defeating King Dongo Dongo, and he gets the 3rd stone from Baronade, which is inside Jabu Jabu's belly from the Zoras. After he gets all 3 spiritual stones, he runs into Ganondorf before he can get back to Zelda. Then Ganondorf pursues Zelda while Link gets the Ocarina of Time and returns to Castle Town. And he lifts the Master Sword to fulfill his part of the Hero of Time. After he lifts the Master Sword, he is taken straight to the Sacred Realm and the Light Sage, and he tells him that he is the one who will save Hyrule from Ganondorf, but he needs to get the other sages to help. After he lifts the Master Sword, he's taken back into reality, and he is now the hero of time. He is no longer a boy, he is now serious, and he is ready to take on evil. After he leaves the Sacred Realm, he runs into Sheik. Sheik actually tells him songs along the way to get through each dungeon, mainly to teleport over there. Runs into Sheik first in the temple, then he explores throughout previous areas of his childhood, like the Forest of the Lost Woods. He goes in here and runs into Phantom Ganon, one of his first bosses when he becomes an adult. After that, he goes after Vulgaria, which actually has taken over the Goron area. Along the way in his journey, he runs into a dark version of himself that actually puts up quite a bit of a fight compared to the other bosses. The main enemy that he fights here is known as Morpha, the Water Eye. Now, after he goes through there, he heads into the shadows deep underground to fight Bongo Bongo, 2 big hands and a giant creature with a giant eye. And when he heads up into the desert, he fights the enemy known as Twin Rova, which was actually the mentor of Ganondorf growing up. After Link gets all of the medallions and all of the stones, he can now talk to the one responsible for all of this, which is known as Princess Zelda, which secretly was Sheik the whole time. Link is surprised by this. Zelda explains what happened after he went into the Sacred Realm and playing that when Link went inside the Sacred Realm, he unlocked a door to get to the Sacred Realm to get the Triforce. Ganondorf takes the Triforce and gets the Triforce of Power as he tries to find the other 2 pieces, which is actually apparently Link finds out that he holds the Triforce of Courage and Zelda holds the Triforce of Wisdom. But while they were talking, Ganon comes out and kidnaps Zelda, taking her inside a crystal, and tells Link if he wants her back, he has to go to the castle. Link finds the castle and notices that it is gone in ruin. It's not the castle of Hyrule, it's now Ganon's. Link goes inside to fight Ganondorf and have a showdown with him, and they put up quite a bit of a fight. Now Link throws a lot of attacks at him. Ganon throws his magic balls at him, which looks like a game of tennis. Otherwise, after the fight goes on, the castle collapses, but Link still has one more battle with Ganondorf as he transforms into the Demon King Ganon. After a huge long fight with Link reclaiming the Master Sword after losing it in battle, he does the final strike and Ganondorf was taken straight to the Sacred Realm. After the job has been done, Link and Zelda say their final goodbyes and Zelda takes him back to his world, 7 years where he can live his own life. And after that, they remember him as the hero of time. Now, after the hero of time fulfills his destiny, he goes to Termina for his next adventure known as Majora's Mask. Now, Majora's Mask has a very dark tone to it, as Link goes on an adventure way more sinister than the last one. Now, the story begins with the Skull Kid, which is someone you actually did run into in Ocarina of Time, as he jumps Link and takes his Ocarina of Time while the two fairies watch him. Now, Link does eventually wake up and starts pursuing the Skull Kid across the forest. Link follows him to a certain distance until Link is unlucky and ends up falling down a small pit and runs into this weird nightmare he has in his head with the Dekus, and suddenly is transformed into a Deku Scrub by the Skull Kid's curse. Now, from this, the Skull Kid leaves and leaves one of the fairies behind on his tail, as Tail follows you across Termina to get through the adventure. Now, as he gets to the top, he runs into this clock tower with this masked man. Now, to get him back to himself, he has to find the Skull Kid and get the Ocarina of Time back so he can turn back to himself. First thing he does is shoot one of his bubbles as a Deku Scrub, and he shoots it straight at the Skull Kid, picks up the Ocarina, goes back in time, back to where the Happy Mask Salesman was. And doing this, he teaches him the Song of Healing, which transforms him back into a human boy, and now that Deku form is now a mask that he can put on and off across his adventure. Now after that, he transforms into human, and now sees Termina in his normal eyes. He uses his new Deku mask to get through his first dungeon to stop the Skull Kid, known as Odawa. South of Termina, known as Windfall with the Poison Swamp, he goes straight up north and gains the Goron mask from a ghost of a dead Goron that failed to do its duty as a Goron. Now he uses the mask to fight the creature known as Goat, or Got, whatever it's called. Usually I like to call it Goat, makes more sense. Now he goes straight west and finds a dead Zora on the beach, plays the Song of Healing and gets the Zora mask, and uses the mask to fight the creature known as Georg in the Great Bay Temple. Now that he has all the transformation masks that he needs, in the final temple known as the Stone Tower Temple, he uses the mask known as the Stone Mask to fight Huge and go against Twin Mold. With these masks, he is a lot stronger than before. And with these different forms, he's gained different relationships with other people and eventually will gain the Fierce Deity mask. Now that he has everything he needs, all the giants are helping him, now he confronts the Skull Kid and is about ready to stop him on the final third day, on the final 6 hours. He stops the Skull Kid but goes into the moon to find out that the mask is the real villain, not the kid. With his Fierce Deity mask, he decides to make the odds even, puts the mask on, and does a full-out battle with Majora's Mask. They put up a great fight, throwing blasts and magic abilities everywhere. Going through the fight, it goes through 3 different forms. Other than the main Majora's Mask, it turns into Majora's Incarnation and Majora's Wrath. But eventually, Fierce Deity beats Majora's Mask, and in the end, the moon is destroyed, and the Happy Mask Salesman finally gets his mask back, and Link and Skull Kid finally settle their differences. And the Skull Kid actually leaves this nice marking on the tree, letting him know that the adventure has ended and Link goes back to Hyrule. Now, after talking about both of them, both have great stories. But which one really had a better story? Ocarina of Time had a really good symbolic story that felt like the hero's quest, while the other one felt like an absolute nightmare, but was still good. I'd say the winner of this is definitely Ocarina of Time. Now, the side quests of Majora's Mask, there is a huge amount of side quests, but the one I want to focus on is the Anju and Cafe quest, the most famous side quest in all of Zelda games. In this story, pretty much you're helping Anju and Cafe become together again because apparently Cafe has been transformed into a boy, even though he used to be a man and was going to marry Anju, but because of the Skull Kid, he got transformed. You have to help Cafe get his masks back and eventually approach Anju herself until they eventually can go back together again. Now, in Ocarina of Time, the best side quest, in my opinion, is the Gerudo Training Ground side quest. This side quest is mainly about getting the ice arrows, which is optional, of course, that's why it's a side quest. Now, in the Gerudo Training Ground, you can almost say it's another mini-dungeon, pretty much implying if you count all the mini-dungeons in Ocarina of Time plus with the actual dungeons, that would mean there is a total of 11 dungeons in this game. And I'd say this is definitely the best mini-dungeon in all of Zelda games that I have at least done so far, other than that one cave in Twilight Princess. But in this side quest, you're going through multiple rooms with timers fighting enemies. Also, at the same time, you are collecting keys because you need to get a chest, and they are full of locked doors. Eventually, when you get enough keys, which is a total of 7 or 8, you will be able to uphold, which is known as the ice arrows. Now, here's a list of side quests in Ocarina of Time, and then look at the list for Majora's Mask side quest. There is so many side quests, pretty much saying that the side quests in Majora's Mask is definitely the winner. Now, let's get one thing straight about the gameplay of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask. Rai and Epona is exactly the same, the only difference is that Link and Epona are adults in Ocarina of Time while they are young in Majora's Mask. Now, the things that Majora's Mask offer is, one is obviously the Deku Scrub, and with his abilities he's able to use flowers to fly and also shoot bubbles out of his mouth. Also, when playing the Goron Mask, you can roll around insanely fast, faster than Epona. And with the Zora Mask, you're able to swim very fast, or at normal speeds if you're playing the 3DS version, even though I prefer the 3DS version, most people don't. And with the Fierce Genie Mask, you're using this mask to be pretty much overpowered. Any hit with this thing, within a couple of hits, it's down. But let's just be clear and say, more does not always mean better. Now, with Ocarina of Time, what this game offers with items in different forms of gameplay, one is with the red tunic, you're able to survive super hot areas, kind of like in the lava area, so you won't die when you touch it. Then with the blue tunic, you're able to breathe underwater, so this way you won't drown. Plus, you also have the iron boots, will allow you to sink at the bottom of the water. Then there's the levitation boots, that allows you to float on air. Now, I think that the alternate tunics and the boots are better than the transformation masks, because it doesn't go over the top with it. Plus, I hate the timer in Majora's Mask, so the gameplay definitely goes to Ocarina of Time. Now, between these two games, when it comes to characters, there's a lot more character development with a lot of them. With Indigo right here, who is just a simple farm guy and becomes a really important side quest in the next one. Same thing with Anju, she's not a cuckoo lady, gives you a bottle in Ocarina of Time. In this one, in Majora's Mask, she actually is part of the Anju Cafe quest, which is the best side quest in the game. Even the character Sokan becomes a thief, unlike just being a normal guy in Castletown. Hell, even the mailman is even given a little side quest in the game, and starts developing and starts talking to a lot of the other characters. Even with the Zoras. Zoras, again, were just characters in the background in Ocarina of Time, but in Majora's Mask, they have their own little band. Well, isn't that cute?
Courage, my valiant and fearless way of... Okay, who's in charge of the freeze frames? Sorry.
Gain control of the slides. As I was saying, the characters were a lot better in Majora's Mask, so it's the winner of this round. Now, this is how I settled which one has better music. I picked 4 of my favorite tracks from Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, since these are tracks only in these games. Now, the red numbers are the view counts to each video, which is how I settle it. Whoever has the better view count and which one I prefer is the one that gets the score. And if there's a disagreement, it's settled with a dice roll. Even goes to Ocarina of Time, odds go to Majora's Mask. And so far, these were my results. With all these themes, the first 2 had better view counts, and I preferred them. The third one had casualties. I prefer Forest, but the other one had a better view count. So I did a dice roll and got Snake Eyes, which made that one win. And the third one, of course, better view count, I preferred that one, so the winner of music is definitely Ocarina of Time. Between the two games, Ocarina of Time does not have that many minigames. There's the fishing minigame, there's the bomb chew minigame, and then there's the Gerudo Valley arrow shooting minigame. Majora's Mask has a bunch. I mean, there's the 3-day minigame, and then there's the chopping logs minigame, and then there's also the witch shooting arrows minigame, and then there's also the dog race minigame that involves getting that one mask where you can read people's minds, even animals. And then there's the one minigame with the beaver to get an extra ball that involves racing through rings. So the winner is definitely Majora's Mask. Now the open game world map of Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask, both of them are very big, but I would say Majora's Mask has a lot more to explore. Now if you look at these small little preferences of what you can explore in Ocarina of Time with Kakariko Village, Hyrule Field, Castle Town, near Hyrule Castle, then there's the Lone Lone Ranch, and then there's the Lost Woods, Kakariko Village, the graveyard next to Kakariko Village, Death Mountain, and on the other end there's the Zora River, and of course there is also
Lake Hylia
and Jawa Jawa's Belly, and of course the corrupted version of Castle Town. Then there is Hyrule Field, except now you're an adult with Epona, and there's also the same area where Jawa Jawa was, but no longer there. Then there's the heated areas in the Fire Temple and the water areas of the Water Temple, and then there's Gerudo Valley, the desert section of the map, and then of course there's the huge Sandstorm Desert area, then the main area outside of the dungeon. Now in Majora's Mask there's of course Clock Down, and there is also Termina Field, which is the biggest area. Then there's also the later areas near the ranch. I think it's Romani Ranch in Majora's Mask. And of course there's the swamps down near Woodfall. Very interesting place of gameplay. And then there's this equivalent to Lost Woods, and the small river that you travel on boat to get to the Deku Palace. Then of course there's the poison swamps around Deku Palace. Then up north there is the mountains of where you find the Gorons. Very snowy area. But with these abilities, you're able to roll through the snow like you're a legit snowball, jumping through these patterns, breaking through the snowball skimmer magic. Then on the west area, you play as a Zora, swimming underwater, riding Epona on some minor areas, but mainly just swimming around. Then there's the Pirate Fortress, and then there's that one area very deep underwater with the giant eels where you need to save another seahorse, plus getting the Zora eggs for the side quest. Then there's the east, where the desert is. But definitely, when it comes to open world map, the winner, I would say, is Majora's Mask. Okay, now when it comes to bosses, this is something where Ocarina of Time really shines. You've got a lot of great bosses. You've got the first boss, Goma, which is a giant spider. You got King Dongo Dongo, which is like, how do I describe it? Like a giant Triceratops mixed with a lizard. Then you've got Baronade, which is like a giant brain with electricity inside a whale. And then after this, you also pretty much have to fight jellyfish, and the next boss is actually Phantom Ganon, which I would argue is better than the actual Ganondorf battle. With this fight with Phantom Ganon, he's jumping in paintings, you have to shoot him with arrows until eventually he stops and starts flying around, so you start hitting him with the magic balls he throws. The next fight is with Volvagia, which is probably one of the most badass fights in any of the Zelda games that I have seen so far. This fight makes you base pretty much off of the Megaton Hammer and your sword. And in the next one, with the Water Temple, you fight Morpha. I frequently forget this enemy's name, but it's pretty much a giant water tentacle with a red eye, like I like to describe it. Now this fight you're frequently just swinging your sword and attacking the thing while it swims around. The idea is to hit it as many times as possible. And the next boss, you're fighting two big hands and a giant red eye, known as Bongo Bongo, which I think is probably the creepiest boss in any Zelda game, at least from what I have seen. Now it's pretty easy, you just shoot arrows at its hands, then hit the eye enough times. And then in the next fight, you fight Twin Rova, which is two witches on broomsticks. Eventually they will combine and make the ultimate Twin Rova when they're frequently shooting both of their magic. You get 3 hits of fire or ice and it'll blast right back at her, and you will be able to hit her and give her a taste of her own medicine while you swing your sword at her. It is fun, and it is definitely enjoyable. Then you fight actual Ganondorf, which isn't even as tough as Phantom Ganon as he even claimed. You frequently just shoot the magic back and forth, and eventually you will shoot the light arrows at him to get a couple of good hits, and it just makes it repeat after that. He does that one light ball attack and a different one. Then he switches into Ganon after the castle collapses. In this fight, the first half, you lose your Master Sword from the fire. I suggest switching the Begoron Sword or the Megaton Hammer if you don't have the sword. Frequently hit him until he dies, either hitting the light arrows or the tail with the sword until you get the Master Sword back, etc. In Majora's Mask, the first fight, Odawa, pretty much bases off of you hitting him on the legs until eventually he falls down so you can hit his eye. Or, well, at least that's if you're playing the 3DS version, but in the original, the eye's not there. Simple mix and repeat fight, but otherwise the next fight, Goat, involved running in a giant circle. In the Goron Mask, frequently riding, trying to hit it on the side with your Goron Mask until eventually stops, until you can hit it with your arrows, or in this case, pretty much just punch it in the old one, or yeah, in the 3DS, it's hitting it with arrows. But in the next fight with Georg, at least in the 3DS version, you're hitting this thing with arrows until eventually you go underwater, but in the old one, you just hit an arrow and hit him underwater. 3DS version, I think, is a lot better at this, because it has this underwater stage, which makes the fight a lot more interesting, as I think the older version just made the fight a lot frustrating. The fourth fight, Twin Mold, I think is a very well done fight. It's definitely better than Twin Rova, a lot more challenging, and it has a lot more development to the fight, makes it a lot more interesting. And just swinging the thing around just looks hilarious. Then the fight with Majora's Mask, you have the mask form, then you've got Majora's Incarnation and Majora's Wrath. All 3 fights are very different in their own ways. One is a floating mask, one is a one going absolutely apeshit, and then the third round is just it turning into an absolute monster with weird tentacles that I don't know if it's either tentacles or whips. It sounds like both, but still a very unique fight. But Ocarina of Time did it better. Mostly for the reason because I think there's more to explore Majora's Mask, because there's a lot of exploration on the map of Termina. And this is mainly because if you look at Ocarina of Time has technically 10 boss battles in the main story, while Majora's Mask only has 5. And believe me, a lot of these boss battles sound like a lot more well crafted and sound more fantasy-like, which is why I would definitely say when it comes to boss battles, Ocarina of Time is definitely the winner. Very similar to the boss round, there are 8 dungeons in Ocarina of Time, which makes a very good variety of different areas and locations to explore, while Majora's Mask only has 4. Half the amount. Like I said in the last round, Ocarina of Time wins the round for dungeons. Now for completing the 2 games 100%, Ocarina of Time gives you a lot of bottles and of course all the medallions, but in Majora's Mask you get a ridiculous amount of bottles and all these other items, plus all the masks you've collected. It's obvious to say the 100% reward goes to Majora's Mask. Now, with the reviews of Ocarina of Time, the original Ocarina of Time has the highest score ever on Metacritic, while the 3DS version has a pretty good high score as well, both in the 90s. Majora's Mask's the high score on Metacritic, at least with the user rating, is higher than the Ocarina of Time one, while the one with Majora's Mask on the 3DS is lower than all the other ones. With taking that in mind, that's a 3 out of 4 score, which implies Ocarina of Time wins this round once again. Well, the results are in, and with the score of 6-5, the debate has been settled, and the winner is official. The winner is Ocarina of Time. Now, if you feel the other way around, don't worry, there's already a video of top 5 reasons why Majora's Mask is better and vice versa coming soon. But anyways, see you guys.